Hi, and welcome back. Today we're going to be making an invite card. My cousin had asked me to go ahead and make a set for her to mail out for her son's first birthday. So let's get started. Here we're starting off the card with the pretty pink posh layered dinosaur stencils. My first roundabout of making, I made 20 before I did the video because I didn't have all my stuff set up yet. I used a smaller blending brush. I highly recommend not doing that. This took way longer than it needed to the first couple of times. This time I went ahead and went up a size and that worked out a lot better. I am not the best blender in the world. I am just a messy person in general. You usually get the ink everywhere. And so throughout this whole process, I had been taping it, but for some reason just forgot to. So go ahead and take a couple minutes to tape up the extra areas because you don't want to end up with ink where you don't want it, like I did up at the top. So you also, if you put the tape on the edge like I do here, it kind of gives you a hinge so that it's easier to get the swap out papers and stuff like that. This time I made sure that the edges of the stencil lined up with the card base in at least one area. Last time I did not do that because I wanted the dinosaurs in a certain spot, and when you're mass producing these, you want as many edges to line up as possible because it will make your life easier. I promise you. I really wanted to keep these invites vibrant considering it's for a first birthday. This took me a little bit to figure out exactly which color combo I wanted, but having my swatches on the side made it a lot easier to do. And I'm telling y'all, that hinge makes life so much easier. Can't really see the bottom of it, but I am using the Waffle Flower stencil mat. And the edge, there's kind of a lifted edge. You can see it on the right hand side. That's what's also helping my paper stay straight because Lord help me, I am horrible about lining things up straight, cutting straight lines. It's just not a natural talent that I have. So anything like that that makes my life a little bit easier to where I don't have to think about it, I am all for it. All right, now we are ready to go ahead and move on to your second layer. I highly recommend cleaning off your stencil, like a quick dry clean when there's nothing under it. I have gotten ink where I've not wanted it to be in the past by just drying it up while it's on there. And of course, you want to go ahead and wash your stencils off. You don't want that ink being on there because the next time you go to do something, could transfer. Definitely have had that happen before. All right, I went ahead and transferred all of my tape over to where I thought I would need it because I'm messy and I know that if I don't take those extra few seconds, it will backfire. So I highly encourage you to do the same. I really wanted the leaves to be green, but I wanted them to stand out from the T-Rex. So I thought the T-Rex would be nicer in a darker green, so that's why we went ahead and did that. And then I felt like we needed some earthy tones, and I think fossil prints are normally, well, they are brown, but I didn't want it. I wanted it to stay true to that, so that's why went ahead and went with a brown for the footprints. When I switch papers or sides of the paper, I do try to do whatever color I had just done so that I'm not having to add in an extra step of closing and then reopening. And, all of that kind of adds up over time and the wear on your wrists and whatnot. You'll notice sometimes my hands are a little bit shakier than other times because, I don't know, use over the years, I guess. And then you will notice me using a piece of scrap paper to kind of maneuver around some of these areas to stencil in. I am just not that precise when it comes to ink blending. I think it's a really cool thing to do, but when I don't block something off by tape or by scrap paper, it just goes where it's not supposed to. And you'll see me kind of try to fix it up. See, I didn't do it right there and it got on the side. So I'm telling y'all, just take the few extra seconds and do it. I don't want to tape up all of these because they are the spots I'm using. So scrap paper is definitely the way to go something you just need to cover up quickly. Okay, now we are entering the final part of the stencil, the third layer. And this is the more fun part for me because you're adding the final touches. You're adding the smiley faces on the dinosaurs, which just kind of bring them to life in a fun way that I think is perfect for a birthday party invite because, I mean, it wants to be fun for everyone. It is a birthday party. Before you ink up these final details, though, make sure your stencil is exactly where you want it to be because it's your last layer and you don't want to mess up on the last layer. Of course, if you do, there's always ways to kind of work around it, put something over it, but it's never fun to have to do that. So just take the few extra moments and go ahead and do that. Even though I started only showing one of the cards after the first round, you will see that I still switched the hinge side over, and I do think that is an important thing to do is to have the hinge. So it makes it super easy using low tack tape to go ahead and do that. If you don't have low tack tape, go ahead and just put it on your clothes a few times and it should do the job just fine. And the color combo for this dino is probably my favorite out of all of them. So excited to incorporate that almost like a coral color, but it's called rouge. So I felt like it went really nicely with the yellow. And I had my stencil move slightly on the last one. So I used my sand eraser to try and get some of the ink up. It's not perfect, but it does help a little bit. You just want to make sure you don't do too much. I built these little templates on Publisher, and then I am using the Fiskars cutter to go ahead and trim them down. I think if I were to do this again, though, I would just put line marks on the ends and use a guillotine cutter because I ran into the problem with the dotted lines, just getting rid of them completely. I was having to cut each one at least twice. Um, so next time I would definitely do that. And also, I feel like with the gliding trimmers, I never get a clean cut. So here you see me taking a sand block and going ahead and cleaning up those things. Now I am gluing the invite information down on the paper and then we will get going with the rest of the card. This part of the card was a little bit tricky for me to figure out because I really wanted the invite to just be one plain layer that could go on somebody's fridge and they could just be reminded of it as they're in their kitchen doing their daily thing. So I felt like the orange really tied in everything, but I needed another sentiment on there that kind of stood out. So white striped paper it is. And I went ahead and used a green ink that you will see soon. Here I am using a technique that I learned off of one of Jennifer McGuire's videos, where she stamps down on the paper first and then uses a template that she made out of laminated paper to go ahead and stamp the sentiment. You just put in the sentiment strip that you can I prefer to use die cuts for that, but you can always do this with just strips you cut out. But I'm just not someone that's naturally gifted at cutting straight, even with a trimmer. So anytime I can take that out of the equation, I am all for it. So die cuts it is for me. Here you see me starting to line up the letters to make the word one. Later on, I will do a different word and a different type of stamp. Let me tell you, this is not my cup of tea right here. What I have learned from this is thicker letters are easier to line up. Later on, you won't even see it because it was such a hot mess. I had to do it in my lap with the thinner letters. What I did learn with the thinner letters, though, is, and I plan on doing this next time with the thicker letters too, use your sticky mat, whatever brand you have, and use that to line up the letters. It made my life so much easier. You put the letters down on the sticky mat, Mine happens to be the Brutus Monroe one, but if you have a Cricut mat, that works great. Scrapbook.com has one, and there's lots of other ones out there in the market. It will make your life so much easier. So I highly encourage you to try it that way, then lift it up and stamp it on the paper. If it looks fine, go ahead and do your strip template and you're good to go. And make sure you check your letters to make sure there's not any lint on them, because I've had this happen numerous times where there is lint on them and then I go to try and fix it and I move the letters on the glass on accident and I have to start all over. Just double check that. It's worth the few extra seconds, I promise you. All right, now we are moving on to spelling out the name with die cut letters. I really like this set. It's from amzn.to, and I believe it's called the Mighty Alphabet. And I just feel like it's the right height, the right amount of skinniness, and it's easy to kind of squish in letters together and make it all go quick and easy. Not use a ton of paper, which I'm always a fan of, because let's be honest, nice quality paper is expensive. I did use lower quality paper for the invite part that you'll see a little bit later on. But I felt like for the words, it did need to be one of my higher quality papers. And anything that I'm actually applying ink to, I try to do higher quality. But because this was going through the printer for the bottom part, I felt like it really was okay if it wasn't high quality and it was just something that I got from the craft store. Another thing that I like about these letters is it comes with a big thing that you can easily just keep all of them on there. So you don't have to worry about it. Just put it back in the stamp pouch holder and it's good to go. I'm not having to fish through the bag to find whichever letter. I just open it up and it's right there. And that's the one I want to use. So it works out great. Okay, and now we are on to trimming down our sentiment strips. I prefer the guillotine for this because I can see everything I need to. It's quick and easy. Don't have to worry about the edges fraying. But any way you do it, it's fine. If you're a miracle worker with scissors and you can cut it straight, then by all means do that. But I don't have that skill. All right, now let's start assembling our card. I'm going to go ahead and put glue down and put our sentiment strip down. I'm trying to keep the words centered, and I've kind of have some points in my mind that I know are going to keep us centered. So that's something you want to do before applying the glue. Next, I'm getting out all of our letters, and I am using the grid on my mat. That's from amzn.to. Whether you have a glass mat, any kind of grid mat works here. I find it easiest to just line my letters up on that, get it the way I like it, make sure it's all precise, and then get the low tack tape out. I'm not talking about the purple tape I had earlier where you gotta make it low tack yourself. No, get true low tack tape out. Tape it on there, and if you're mass producing, just leave it there. It is a game changer when you do that. Just go ahead and line the letters up on top of the ones that you've already taped down, and voila, same spacing, takes way less time. And because it's low tack tape, you can go ahead and tape over it without having to worry about the tape down that's below it, and just lift it all up and flip it over and apply whatever adhesive that you prefer to use. For me, that thing is liquid glue, and I prefer to use the Barely Art glue. But, you have to use whatever's works for you. For me, liquid glue works the best because it is very forgiving, and I need all the forgiveness that I can get when I craft because I seldomly do things correctly the first time, and usually something needs some kind of an adjustment. So this works out the best for me, and I highly encourage you to give it a try too if you have not tried liquid glue before. Now, this next part might go against everything that you know and love, but I do not wait for my things to dry before I release the tape. I cannot tell you the amount of times I waited for it to dry and the glue had seeped out, and caught onto the tape and the tape was tearing the paper and it's a hot mess, nightmare. All your work is down the drain. So for me, what works best is just pushing down on those letters, making sure they're staying as I'm lifting the tape up. Also, make sure you're using a true low tack tape because there are knockoff tapes out there and they will just rip your paper up and it's heartbreaking. I've been there one too many times. Now, I did put the sentiments on, but I didn't realize my camera had slid down, so I'm sorry about that. But you kind of imagine what's going on. Now, you might have noticed I left my sentiment strips long. That was so that I had plenty of wiggle room with wherever I stamped the sentiment. So at the very end, once everything was good to go, I went ahead and just trimmed the edges, and then it was good to go. Well, here is our first birthday dinosaur themed roaring invite card. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I had a blast doing this. And I am just starting out on this video journey of card making, but I'd love for you guys to follow me along with it, whether that be on my Instagram, here on YouTube, on my website, honestly, all of it. Whatever you choose, I'll be super grateful for. And I hope all of y'all have a blessed rest of the week and happy crafting, everyone.